Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe. Hello and welcome to WrestleRamble. This is Luke Owen. I'm Ollie Davis, and today we're going to be talking, should Raw go back to 2 hours after being 3 hours for so long? How can we fix WWE's commentary team? And what are our personal worst matches ever in WWE or wrestling in general? If you want to go to any of those discussion topics or other things we're going to get to in the show, click the timestamps in the video description below or stay right here, where we're going to do a bit of rambling, which is going to kick off with a bit of, please subscribe on iTunes.
Yes, because we have a podcast. Well, this is a podcast. It's a video format while you're watching here on the old YouTube machine, but on phones and other media playing devices, you can listen to this on your commute. You can listen to it while you're on a train, in a car, on a bike,
mini disc,
a skateboard.
Betamax.
I thought recently about getting a skateboard again.
Why?
To get to and from the studio. So, like, when I get off the tube, that I can just...
So it's about a 15-minute walk from public transport for you.
Yes.
You wouldn't skate as the crow flies through central London.
No, it takes me an hour and a half on the tube.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to...
What is that in skateboard time? That isn't an option on Google Maps. It tells me everything else.
Yeah, they really should. I'll put that into whoever the
what
man
is that
in charge
in
of...
the hipster time? So would you? this is an ironic thing, right?
No, I like skateboarding.
You used to be a skater, did you?
I used to ride a skateboard when I was a kid, a young teen.
What was the? They named a trick after me.
Of course, the
Ollie.
Very good.
That's how good I was watching people or playing Tony Hawk.
Because I was super into like the Tony Hawk games. Loved watching the CKY videos, particularly when they just did like the skateboarding sections on there. So I was super into skateboarding. Rodney Mullen was a hero of mine because he just did like tricks and that. Like he used to do handstands.
I don't know who that is, I'm afraid.
He used to do handstands on it and then would like lift himself up from a handstand position and flip the board round and then flip himself round so he would land on the board flat. It was very impressive. We'll watch some stuff on YouTube after this.
Wow, I can't wait.
Oh, we were watching the Monday Night War.
That was fun. I like that bit. I actually went to a Village Fate thing recently, and there was a half pipe, and there was some youths doing a skateboarding competition.
Oh, wow.
Had like a guy, had a DJ mixing some songs like this.
Yeah, like that.
And some guy was sort of commentating like, oh, sick flip there from Buster. And then there was another sort of gaggle of people with clipboards, obviously marking these youths on how well they were performing. And I was like, this is cool. I can watch this. And then someone came out with a scooter.
Oh, no.
Wait. Have you ever seen that Simpsons episode when Homer looks out the window, all the Japanese ninjas are going crazy, and there's just one guy in a white suit standing in the middle?
Yeah.
And Marge is like, come on, let's not watch this. And Homer's like, but I want to see what the guy in the white suit does. This kid was so cool, just sitting on the scooter, like watching everyone else do their thing. And he like has a cigarette all the time in the world. And he sits down for a bit more, changes position, and he's like, gets up, puts in his earphones, obviously clips in his thing like Baby Driver protagonists, and then just goes for it. I didn't know scooters could do the sort of things he did. He'd do like 360, he was like Ricochet with wheels.
Any person, I will use the word person, who is old enough to smoke should not be on a scooter. Scooters for me just feel like they're for 8-year-olds. And whenever I see adults on scooters, I do judge them very harshly.
All right, Randy Orton. ... dive. ...
Scooter.
Yeah. Oh, but he was very good at it. I don't know if he...
I mean, he's clearly better than I.
Yeah.
So I can't hate on him too much.
What trick would you pull out as you go to
on a skateboard
trick?
I could kickflip, but that was more or less about it. I was never like a very competent skater. Couldn't do half pipes or anything like that. I was very much like me and my friends used to use it to get around town, and and then we'd go to the skate park, do a kickflip, and then be like, oh, let's go home now.
Yeah, graze a knee.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, we would go to skate parks for other reasons, which I probably shouldn't go into on these sorts of shows.
Naughty.
I know, yeah. It's during my misspent youth.
I was there doing my finger skating. Fingerboards.
Oh, you had tech decks.
Wow, tech decks. I'm going to customise this with some fancy luminous green wheels.
Yeah. fun fact for you about tech decks.
Tell me.
Get ready for this one. This is a long tail fun fact. There was a company that was making a tech deck video game, and they were going to use that engine to create a Sonic the Hedgehog skateboarding game that was a bit like Tony Hawk's, and it was called Sonic Extreme, which was another that already used that as a previous Sonic project that never got off the ground. It was meant to come on the Sega Saturn and never did. And this is going to be a Sonic the Hedgehog skateboarding game. It's going to come out on Dreamcast and PS2. It never got made, but I recently saw some footage of it in action.
I really like video games, and I really like movies. I wonder if there was something... If only there was something that combined those two. Am I right, folks?
Yeah, if only there was some sort of like a book that compiled the history of...
Oh, that sounds perfect.
Of video game movies, yeah. I mean, if I was looking for that sort of book, I would certainly go to thisislukeowen.com for more information.
That's two of those words are your name.
They are, yes. That's because last Friday, that felt like it was a purposefully done segue, and it really wasn't. I actually wasn't going to ask to plug my book.
No, I just thought it was quite nice to bring up.
Well, thank you very much.
Luke released his first published book on Friday.
Came out on Friday. Thank you very much.
This is the you get the. Should we do the Triple H? It's just this, isn't it? Where people can freeze frame this, like I just signed you.
Yeah.
No, you don't point to me, do you?
Yeah, sometimes they point. I thought it was where you were going to do the Triple H selfie where he pulls this face.
Yeah, it's weird. It was his birthday last Thursday.
I know, and then everyone stands behind him doing this.
Yeah.
Doing the
they love it too sweet.
But yeah, so my book, it came out on Friday. Lights, Camera, Game Over. How Video Game Movies Get Made. It details the production histories of titles like Super Mario Brothers, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Wing Commander, Lara Croft Tomb Raider, Pixels, Hitman, Max Payne, and unproduced video game movies like Pac-Man and Sonic the Hedgehog, live-action Pac-Man and Sonic the Hedgehog movies, and a Metroid movie directed by John Woo that never got made. It's currently out. You can go to Amazon and buy it there.
All right, Luke, you're taking the piss now.
Thanks.
So, congratulations, though.
Thanks, man.
Today, this is what happens when we don't have a pay-per-view to talk about on a Monday. There's nothing until SummerSlam.
Mm-hmm.
So
we've actually got like 5 weeks or 4 weeks.
Is it that long? It's 20th.
Yes, we've got
20th.
No, it's the 20th.
No, it is because the 26th is the Floyd Mayweather Conor McGregor fight.
Yes, and it's
and
Fright
this is
Fest.
the weekend before.
Yeah, more important.
Of course, Fright Fest.
Yeah, more
the
important.
one that everyone's talking
Exactly.
about in all of the world.
More importantly, it's Fright Fest.
Yes.
Where the world premiere of Cult of Chucky is being shown. Yes, please. Hashtag yes, please.
So, but before then, we have SummerSlam, which is now in about 3 weeks, I guess.
Yeah.
So it would have been 3 weeks yesterday. Exciting. SummerSlam's one of the biggest shows of the year. And then I remember how long it was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm assuming you're not going to watch it live?
6 hours. I can't function the next day. I watched, I can't remember the last...
It was the Royal Rumble.
I watched the Royal Rumble live.
So funny. Because I came in, this was before I was working in the studio full time, and I came in on the Wednesday to record the Flicker Myth podcast. And that was the Wednesday after, so it's 3 days later.
Yeah.
You were still... away with the fairies, just couldn't
no
function.
Spring chicken anymore. I can't. I used to be able to pull all-nighters. These days, if I stay up late and then try and write, or stay up late to watch Royal Rumble, it'd finish around 5, 6 a.m. our time, and then I go to sleep for a few hours, wake back up. I would have been fine to just write these fantastic scripts, but it's like the words come like syrup, and painful syrup passing out of my eyeballs, where liquid isn't usually meant to come from.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's all by the by. That means this is a mailbag episode of the show.
Indeed.
We've got some questions that people have sent in into us. People who have donated a certain amount on Patreon. So if you donate this much, we'll definitely answer your questions. Here they are.
Which means that if you have sent an email in, and we know you, if you have an email in, you know who you are, and we're not answering it on this, it's because you're not a Patreon backer.
Or we don't care. We don't care about what you said.
Yeah, it's just a stupid
I've
email.
set up a really good spam filter. So anyone who requests us to book CM Punk's return again just goes straight in. I'm kidding, of course I don't.
Or who misspells your name.
Genuinely, all read all your emails, by the way. Genuinely do. But replying is a whole other ball game of that takes a lot longer to do. So sorry if we don't get back to everyone, but we do read them all. So first up we have Hard as Nails Nick Schiff. He says, if Raw were to go back to its original format of 2 hours, would it dramatically help WWE in ratings and quality of content, or that WWE has dug itself a hole with the saturation of the product. It might be too little, too late. Personally, I think the 2-hour format would help immediately because it could help preserve characters and lessen fatigue. Also, crowds may be more willing to stomach a shorter show. People forget that the live crowd must endure 3 hours of wrestling plus their own dark match main event. From experience, it's exhausting. I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's a conversation that's been had many times. I think really since WWE went 3 hours, which you said we passed an anniversary of quite recently.
No, it was the brand split anniversary last week.
I feel like there's a 3-hour anniversary that we've just passed as well.
So when did they go 3 hours? It wasn't after the 1000th episode, was it? Because that was around 2013.
I think it has been something like 2013. It's been that long, because I was actually working for a different company a long, long time ago. So, yeah, I was in my mid-20s.
Yeah.
So it's been a long old while of us watching 3-hour wars week in, week out. 3-hour wars?
Wars. I mean, that's what it feels like, doesn't it?
It's a war of attrition.
It really hasn't helped it at all. And it's to deliver 3 hours of content every week. Well, it's not, people say, oh, but it's not really 3 hours. It's actually 2 hours and a quarter. You didn't say that about the 2-hour shows. You didn't say it was not actually 2 hours. It's an hour and whatever. It's to maintain people's interest for 3 hours. You do have to be an actual sport, because all of these things, all of the wrestling things, are coming from a creative well, and there's only so much stuff you can bring from a creative well into existence on a weekly basis, unless you get more people in. But really, most of WWE goes through 1 or 2 people's minds. But sports, you don't have that creative element to it from a storytelling aspect. It's just, people's creative solutions to getting balls around people or new defensive plays. It's a completely different way of watching telly, which is why, or content in general, which is why in America you can have the NFL or baseball go on for hours and hours and hours. And people will sit there and watch it mostly. But for wrestling, it's as much as it doesn't want to be a sport. I think they thought, these other sports do it. We can just the audience is there to watch wrestling.
Yes,
but or like if you think of MMA, the UFC cards go on for 6-7 hours, and that feels like a breeze. It goes through relatively quickly for fans of it. I can't say it does for me. I only tune in to watch the main events, but for things like Raw or WrestleMania, where it goes a similar length of time, because it is all through one person's filter, there's only so much of that filter you can take. Variety is really what keeps stuff going, and the 3 hours is what's killing it. It's losing people. Yeah, so what do you think I think they should do? I think they should go back to 2 hours.
Yeah,
surprise.
Just to back up onto your point as well, is that because WWE it's a scripted medium. Each week they have a script, and they write that script throughout the week, and then they produce that script on a Monday night, and then they produce that script on a Tuesday night for when they do SmackDown. So let's looking at Raw as the example. It's 3 hours of Raw. So every single week, the creative team have to come up with 3 hours worth of content, new content, every single week. Now, when you do like a season of a TV show, you have the scripts written by the time the season goes into production. So you have like 11 months to write those 24 episodes. So that's 11 months of preparation there. The best analogy I've ever heard about the 3-hour Raws was, imagine trying to write The Lord of the Rings every single week, which is what they have to do. They've got to write 3 hours worth of show. Even if you do that, it's only really 2.25 hours. All right, fine. Try writing Captain America's Civil War every single week.
And just going through the run times of movies.
Well, yeah, but it's true though. Captain America's Civil War. That's got like a year's worth of development where they nail down. Okay, so this is our 2-hour 15 movie, and we've had this year's worth of development to make sure this story works absolutely brilliantly. That's a year's worth of development there. They do it in a week, and they do it every single week. No wonder, they're creatively drained and struggling to come up with fresh and new ideas and trying to make things interesting for 3 hours consistently. It can't be done.
Well, it can't. Not for any long period of time, because as we've seen in Raw of recent... But even then, actually, that's a good point. Raw in recent weeks has been the best it's been at any time it's been 3 hours.
Yeah.
But the problem is, we come out of it going, oh, Raw was good. That was a good 3 hours this week. But then you start to go into it and you go, actually, there was an hour of filler in there.
Yeah.
Like, there was a really hot angle to open the show. The last hour was really good with several segments and matches. There was a match maybe there in the middle. But, there was at least an hour of filler.
Yeah.
And that's way too much. A whole hour, a third of your show is subpar. That's why, I don't think I've ever given the top rating to a Raw episode in my Raw reviews. And that's because the way I approach them is there has to be no point where I'm bored. It has to that is the perfect example of a wrestling show, 5 out of 5. So there can't be any slack. I can never see it happening, but maybe I did do it once, maybe like a post-WrestleMania Raw, where it's hit that 5 out of 5 for me. Because those lesser bits will bring it down. You, of course, gave it a 5 out of 5 on your first
In
week.
all fairness, that's because that Raw did not bore me at all at any point. It's just like those 3 hours flew by, absolutely flew by. But
it doesn't just have to be not boring.
Well, no,
it has to be
you criticize
really
me
good.
every time I bring this up, but it didn't just like not bore me. It was also very good. Like, the wrestling was solid, the writing was solid, the performances were solid. It was a great show overall. Just because you didn't see it. But to Nick Schiff's point, hard as nails, Nick Schiff, it's not just the fact that we've got to sit there and watch this show and they've got to try and write this Captain America Civil War every single week. There are people going to these shows live that have to endure these 3.5 hour shows. Because you have, 2 or 3 dark matches beforehand. You might have
the main event.
You might have a main event taping, and then you got your dark match afterwards. You're there for a long time. But WWE see that as a good thing, because their whole idea is that we're not just a television show, we're a touring product. We are a travelling circus. And to be a travelling circus is you have to give lots of entertainment. So WrestleMania, in Vince's mind, is like it's the world's greatest travelling circus because you get to see 7 hours worth of content. How great is that? That's 7 whole hours. You bought 1 ticket and you got 7 hours worth of entertainment. You can't argue with that kind of pricing, as he's there in his big top hat and his circus outfit with his twirly moustache, with a big cane, being the greatest showman on earth like Jim Sterling, and just being there going like, come on and see the Beast Brock Lesnar taking on Goldberg, and then they're fighting a bear or something.
Fighting a bear for 7 hours.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, back in the day they would have done it.
Yeah, it's just I'm always prefer quality over quantity. I would prefer 2 hours, like even for a WrestleMania, 2 hours of like an NXT takeover, right? Of course, they've got more long-term booking and better developed characters going into those shows, but there's a reason they're so easy to watch. It's not just because the wrestling is to a very high standard, much higher than what you would expect on a main roster show. It's also because it's 2 hours. Like, if it went to 3 hours, you'd go, oh, but the one in the middle kind of sagged. Whereas at the 2 hour shows, you're like, no, I don't know what the worst thing was there. It was all really, really good.
Yeah, it says a lot. Like at the Takeover Chicago, where you're like, yeah, I think the women's match was the worst thing on the show, and even then, that was pretty good.
Yeah. It's not exclusive to WWE. New Japan shows go on forever and have a load of fun, but ultimately worthless 6-man tags at the start. I watched a Ring of Honor show. I think it was the one after WrestleMania weekend. And that went over 4 hours, and I thought, God, this is a great card. But I mean, you've got about an hour of fluff in here now, when you could have had like a top to bottom fantastic card. I just don't see why you would put in those filler matches just to get everyone on the card. The idea that everyone needs a WrestleMania payday, I know we're going off of Raw now, is totally, it's not for the wrestlers. You're making a product for the fans. You shouldn't give out handouts to people who work for you. They should earn it, especially if they're independent contractors. But that's a different point.
Also, to bring it back to close off this Raw discussion, it's not just a case of taking it back to 2 hours, which is never going to happen, by the way. Like, as long as they're on the USA Network, it's always going to be a 3 hour show because that's the contract they've got. That's the amount of money they've been paid.
Until 2019.
Until 2019, yeah. So with 3 hours, it's not going away anytime soon. And actually, I believe, come 2019, they're not going to look to re-up on the USA Network. They're just going to put it on the network exclusively.
No.
Totally. Like, that's the whole point of the network, is that you don't have to do television.
Yeah, long term. Not like 8 years. What was it? Like 5 years within establishing the network?
No, I
no,
guess...
I think it's 40% of all of WWE's income comes from those TV rights fees.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying they're just going to scrap 40% of all their income to take a punt on the network?
It depends on how much they... if they made efforts to make the network something that you have to subscribe to if you are a wrestling fan, then maybe, yeah. That's the ultimate aim, is to get off TV and get onto the network exclusively.
It's not the... I disagree with that completely, because you'll have your content there. People will have to go there to watch your stuff. But you're a closed shop then. You're not bringing in new viewers because people will have to opt in. Whereas, you could just be flicking and go, I kind of like this fake wrestling stuff. I'm a new fan now. But I think you want to have, a backup. The WWE Network is a backup in case everything goes to S-word.
But you do have that. You have the free trial. It's like Netflix. You have the 30-day free trial to try and hook people in and make them stay. If you're a WWE fan, if you are a wrestling fan and you're not subscribed to the network, you don't need to be subscribed to the network because you get all of it on TV for free at the moment anyway.
Pay-per-views?
Pay-per-views, you could just... what they tend to do is probably just sign up for the 30-day free and then just cancel their subscription and then just re-up with a different email address come the next pay-per-view they want to watch. But anyway, again, we're way off topic.
Yes.
The point I was going to make about it's not just going away from 3-hour Raw, it's about kind of restructuring how the shows work. If you go back and watch an episode of Raw from 1999, 2000, 2001, actually any period, that Attitude Era period of wrestling when Raw was 2 hours... It is, and granted this was in the late 90s, so all TV was like this, but it is breakneck speed stuff. Like, no match lasts more than 3 minutes. Entrances are really quick, the matches are even quicker, and it's just like, okay, here's Matt Hardy versus Gangrel. Okay, what's next? Okay, well, it's X-Pac versus D'Lo Brown. All right, cool. What's next? And it's like a kid with ADD playing with toys. And it's just like, okay, now we're done with this match. What's next? Let's do a backstage skit. Big Boss Man, what's he up to? Oh, he's being mean backstage and beating up someone. Well, something else happening in the ring now. What's going on here? Oh, it's Jeff Hardy's having a match. And it's this breakneck speed stuff. So when you watch those 2-hour shows, it never feels like it's 2 hours because so much happens at breakneck speed. You're like, all I need to take away from that was that Austin came down and beat up Vince McMahon. Cool. Let's move on to what's happening next week.
That's why SmackDown, a good episode of SmackDown, when it kind of adopts that pace, you're like, whoa, was that 2 hours? Or an hour of 15, whatever it works out as. I think there's probably a happy medium.
Yeah.
I would like to see longer than 3-minute matches. You could just base your 2 hours of...
I would say that when you have those 3-minute matches, it does make the pay-per-view matches mean something. Because if you constantly have 25-minute matches on Raw every week, when it comes to what's the reason to buy a pay-per-view? You just to get another 25-minute match,
or to watch. That's another larger point. Yeah. So I think we're quite. Although it sounded like we disagreed a lot, we very much agreed that Raw should go 2 hours.
Yes, very much so. Only because I think it will benefit the show no end.
But they make so much money. Well, not so much money, but they do make a sizable amount more for that extra hour.
Yes.
So you can, it's short-term gain for long-term loss. And ultimately, the other thing we didn't go into, this isn't speculation. This is the last thing on this topic. There is a considerable decline in ratings across the board for WWE since they've gone 3 hours. It was slowly declining anyway because wrestling isn't in a hot period right now. They go 3 hours. Honestly, the average ratings used to be 4 to 5 million. That's what Raw did, 4 to 5 million. But it's like the hour hand of a clock. You don't see it move. And now we're talking, the Raw did a good rating this week. They did a 3.1. You're like, this time a year ago, that would have been like Vince McMahon would have been having a fit backstage.
End of the world type stuff.
Yeah, like that. And we've hit so many 20-year lows of Raw viewership in the last 12 months. It's insane. But going back to last year, 3.5, that was around the average. This year, there are so many shows that are dipping under 3 million. Mm-hmm. This is a real problem. And it's a shame they've gone for the short-term cash.
And again, to use that Lord of the Rings analogy again, trying to ask a new fan, oh, hey, you get to watch a new episode of Lord of the Rings every single week. It's a big commitment to ask someone to sit down, a new fan to come in and be like, yeah, this show's 3 hours, but next week's show, is also 3 hours.
It's not a special.
And then there's a 2-hour show on SmackDown, a 2-hour show on Tuesday. Oh, and by the way, there's a pay-per-view this coming Sunday that's also 3 hours. And then the day after that is another 3-hour episode of Raw. This coming SummerSlam weekend, you've got 3-hour NXT, 6-hour...
2-hour NXT.
Yeah, but you got the hour pre-show, and I think it'll probably be a longer show as well because it's a Brooklyn show, which means they'll probably give it more time. But even if you give it like the hour pre-show, so it's 3 hours for NXT, 6 hours for SummerSlam, 2-hour pre-show, 4-hour main show, 3-hour Raw, 2-hour SmackDown, 1 hour NXT.
You know what else happens that week? Like 4 hours of Mae Young Classic content goes up on the network.
Oh, and you swore then. You're right, that goes up at that time, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a Thursday.
What a terrible time to put that up.
Yeah.
I also just disagree with them putting it up in a big block booking. That's another topic for another time.
So what you're saying is...
I'm going to drink my coffee.
There's only so many Lord of the Rings you can take.
Yes.
And then you start getting The Hobbit. And we all know how bad those movies were. Phil ain't... God, we spent a long time on that.
We certainly did.
We very optimistically put down 5 questions for this show.
I don't think we're going to get to all 5.
So, Phil, well, we talked about skateboards for a good 10 minutes at the start.
No, we didn't.
Phil Stopford, or to use his wrestling nickname bestowed by us, Phil Ain't No Stopping Ford Now.
Yes.
He has said, "Greetings, Ollie and Luke. So my question, and please excuse the ramble beforehand. For several weeks, maybe even months, yourself and Luke in particular have commented on the Raw and SmackDown live commentary teams really not doing a good job of actually commentating on matches, not hyping up the wrestlers, sport entertainers, selling moves and generally getting the audience interested in what is going on and why we should actually care about the wrestlers in the ring. Personally, I think NXT has it best with Mauro, Mamma Mia Ranallo, and Nigel McGuinness, throwing Corey Graves for a 3-man booth. Also, Renee Young. I think she could do a better job than Michael for the Wing Cole and Tom Phillips. In brackets, I hate Michael Cole's commentary. Showing my age here, but for me, you can't beat Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse the Body Ventura on commentary. And special shout out to Bobby the Brain Heenan and JR Jim Ross too. So, my question to you both is, what would you do to improve the quality of the commentary teams? Be it 2-person booths or 3-person, who should be calling the play-by-play in the matches, who should be the colour commentators? Thank you for reading, keep up the good work, and that was my ramble.
Yeah, I mean, so my favourite all-time commentating duo, and they were quite a short-lived commentating duo, but it was Jim Ross and Paul Heyman.
Oh, yes.
So great. Like, WrestleMania X7 is a great show, but it's made even better by their commentary because their commentary is so good throughout. And I think one of the reasons why, and actually this ties into, like, when it was JR and Jerry Lawler, which is probably my second favourite duo.
That's what I grew up on.
Yeah, it's what I grew up on as well. I mean, you can't, you're right, Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse Ventura is great. Love Bobby the Brain.
Yeah, Bobby's great.
But it was JR and The King. That was my era.
It's the Attitude era,
yeah, that was my era of commentary. So, but they were characters. They were characters unto themselves, but they were also every single line of their thing, because none of it was like handed in front of them saying like, here, now say this, or shout through the headset, here, now say this. Everything that they said about the matches tied into the storylines, their characters, their motivations. And you had Jerry Lawler, a former wrestler, giving his, when he wasn't just doing it like, I'm Jerry Lawler and I'm going to say this now.
Puppies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, puppies. Woohoo. Doing all that crazy stuff. But it's all about, like, he would offer wrestling insight. It's like, well, if you're a wrestler, you want to be doing this. And if I was in his position, I would be doing this. I also love with Jerry Lawler as well, and Paul Heyman did this brilliantly, really supporting heels.
Yes.
And, like, just, like, Jerry Lawler was so behind Vince McMahon and anyone who was connected to Vince. He was just like, oh, they're the greatest. Like, look at him. Like, he's like, oh, Kane's the best now that he's with the, like, when he's with the corporation. He's like, oh, he's a big doofball, but he'll do it for Vince. And you had Ken Shamrock, and he used to hate Ken Shamrock, but now he's with Vince McMahon, so now he's the best. And his emotion whenever something bad would happen to Vince, really, like, it sold it so well. Because then you had Jim Ross on the other side going like, Stone Cold, oh no, Vince! It was brilliant. And Heyman did that so well as well, being the suck up to all the heels. And Bradshaw sort of does it, But not really. He'll just like, Baron Corbin's amazing. Like, you build a wrestler from the ground up, you're just like him. But he'd also do that for the baby faces.
That's the problem there.
Yeah, so he doesn't really work. And then poor Byron Saxton, poor L. Byron Saxton, he's adding absolutely nought. There are certain shows where you don't even notice he's there. And the same happens with Percy Watson in NXT. Your man in your email here said it's the best team down in NXT is Morrow and Nigel. It's like, yeah, there's a third man there. It's Percy Watson, who adds absolutely nothing to that team.
Nigel's very good at explaining the intricacies of what's happening to people in the ring. So the thing that the announcers should do is tell a story through the match, but within the confines of pretending this is a real athletic competition. And Nigel McGuinness does it the best of anyone at the moment, I think. I can't think of anyone who's impressed me more with it. Don Callis is kind of good on New Japan. Don Callis and Kevin Kelly have gotten really good. Before then, my favourite combo in recent years was Steve Corino and Kevin Kelly on Ring of Honor, because Corino, oh my God, he would, talking about playing the heel guy who just cheers the heels.
Yeah.
And people but we're grown-ups now. We don't have to have babyface and heel commentators where they're bashing against each other. But it's so much fun.
Yeah.
It's so, what you've just described is JR and JR and Jim Ross, JR and Jerry Lawler. What you've got now is it's flat. The tension's flat. Sure, it's more realistic, I guess, from a sports perspective, where you don't have the colour guy actively booing all the bad gamesmanship tactics. But you do have an actual conflict, a dramatic conflict, playing out through the match in your ears, as well as what you're seeing on screen. You're kind of hearing the good and the bad angel over the face and the heel's shoulders within the match. And I've kind of forgot. Yeah, Steve Corino, he did this brilliant thing where he used to get really annoyed every time a babyface went up to the top rope. Because, old-fashioned rules of wrestling, closed fists are banned, top rope moves are banned. He would flip his lid when a babyface went up to the top rope. Because it's banned! Why isn't the referee doing anything? But then the reason that works is because he's the bad guy. Corino there in that situation, that the heel commentator's the bad guy, and he follows that up with being a hypocrite. So you're like, you're a douchebag. I know not to side with you, because then he'll, as soon as the heel uses the top rope or uses, brass knucks, a foreign object, he'll just go, yeah, but you got to do what it takes to win.
Any way it takes to win.
Exactly. So you've got this, and you're like, you're a douchebag. At least Jim Ross, or the babyface guy, is sticking to being a good guy. And that's really the most important thing, that you are listening to someone you trust. No one did it better than Jim Ross. And then Jim Ross is the guy who says, well, buy the pay-per-view this weekend. You've got a trusted voice that you like saying you need to watch this. And I believe Jim Ross. If he's telling me this is going to be a good pay-per-view, he's built up enough goodwill already. When Michael Cole says it, it's just reading off a press statement.
Michael Cole, whenever he says something, you don't buy into it. So main events don't feel like main events because they never call it like it's a real sporting event, like you said. They just call it like it's not real, and they've just got a script in front of them, and they're just saying those lines that they're meant to be saying. Can I tell you my favourite Jim Ross, Jerry Lawler match in terms of them being commentators and their style of commentary they did? It was Kurt Angle's pay-per-view debut match. So Survivor Series 1999. He was wrestling Meat, the former Sean Stasiak. And Kurt Angle's whole gimmick, he had all these vignettes going on before, which is I'm the first true athlete, the first celebrated real athlete in the World Wrestling Federation. So he comes and everyone's meant to be booing him because he's a real. So what? We're not athletes, are we? We don't support real athletes. So he comes in, and Jim Ross is there going he's an Olympic hero, he's won gold medals, he's a real athlete, he's got something to really show us here in the World Wrestling Federation. And Jerry Lawler, on the other hand, is just oh yeah, but he's never made it in the WWF. He is, he's done it in the Olympics, but WWF's a whole different game. I'm not sure I can buy into this guy just yet. And the crowd are booing Kurt Angle in the match. And Kurt Angle, it was an audible, we've since learned, Vince told him. It was, the referee goes up to him and says, Vince has just said, go outside the ring, grab a microphone and cut a promo on the crowd.
Wow.
And so,
I didn't know this.
Yeah, Angle told it on Jericho's podcast, and I think it's on that 24 documentary as well. So Angle rolls out the ring, grabs a microphone and just goes, You do not boo an Olympic gold medalist. You do not boo an Olympic gold medalist.
Perfect.
And as soon as that, Jim Ross goes, well, I don't really agree with that now. And then Jerry Lawler was like, he's right, JR, you shouldn't boo an Olympic gold medalist. And ever since then, he just switched. And he's like, this guy's the best. And he then became Kurt Angle's biggest fan. Because, like, he's my Olympic hero.
You know, there's another bit, and this is why JBL doesn't work, but occasionally, for all the bad stuff Jerry Lawler did, when someone did something truly despicable, and Jerry Lawler went, oh, well, that's gone too far.
Yeah.
And he like, oh my God, whoa, this has gone too far.
Even Jerry doesn't agree with it.
Like, it was, I remember the Taz and Lawler feud when Taz came in and they smashed the sweet jar over JR's head. I was like, I forgot it. I kind of had my suspicions it wasn't fixed, or but I thought that was real. I was just like, well, this is outrageous. Because
he's dog life born, dog life bred.
Yeah. So definitely go down to 2-person booths.
Yeah.
Not a fan of the 3. Just 2 everything. 2 hours, 2 people. What is the
2
3 is not the magic number here.
2-man commentary booths really do, because you do cut out, like, then you're cutting out Booker T because he's dead weight on Raw. He just says things. Like, he's not adding anything to it. As I said,
well, he's adding racial diversity.
Yes.
Which is what it's quite transparent what they're doing.
Yeah, I was going to Percy Watson is there.
Percy Watson, Byron Saxton.
But unfortunately, when you look at it, they're the 3 that you can cut from all 3 teams.
Well, it's because they're there to fill a quota. They're not there on merit.
No. And it's a real shame.
Yeah.
A real shame.
So 2-person booths. One other thing, and I mentioned this to you last week, off the mic. Guffawing in beatdowns. Commentators should not laugh unless it is an out-and-out comedy match, or if it's a heel guy laughing at a good guy getting beaten down. I do not like if there's a real that I think it was the Elias Sampson guitar shot, to use a recent example on Finn Balor. Corey Graves laughed. Or was it? Oh, was this?
Corey, the one you're thinking of was when Braun Strowman kicked Apollo Crews.
Yes, sorry, you're completely right. Went that fantastic spot. Apollo Crews does a senton or something.
He does the moonsault.
And Braun Strowman kicks him from a lying position. Awesome feat of strength. The commentators should have just sold that going, oh my God, this guy, there's no way Crews is beating him down after this. Strowman's going to destroy him. Whereas Corey just went, and I like Corey, but he just went, he kicked him across the ring.
I was going to say, I think even on this WrestleRamble, I said I had the exact same reaction that Corey Graves did, because I was on the tube watching and I literally went, oh! He had the exact same reaction.
But it cheapens the action.
Yeah.
If the commentators are, like, why should I care about it if it's just something to be laughed at? I want this to be an incredible feat of strength. Yeah. So don't stop. Like, once I'm sorry, I probably ruined it for everyone now. Once you notice that the commentators start to guffaw through serious moments or just people hitting each other in general, that's not what happens.
I mean, for me, solving this issue is quite simple. Stop giving them scripted things to say. Stop giving them quotas of things they need to say. Stop hampering them things they can and cannot say, and just let them commentate. Just let them call things like if it was a sporting event. I know it's not. We know it's not real, but just pretend, mate. Call it like it is.
So just one more question. We'll get to yours next week, Rocco, because we're going over time already. Arnie K, the K stands for coolest dude ever. Wicked guy. He helped us out a lot on the Patreon.
Certainly did.
His question is, this is a tough one. What is the worst TV and pay-per-view match you guys have ever seen?
Now, you said this to me, and I instantly had my answers.
But I was like, man, I tried to get those ones out of my memory, because when I think of a bad match, I think of something where the guys come out worse off than they are already, like from character storytelling perspectives, stuff that kills people's characters, like Booker T and Triple H at, what was that?
WrestleMania,
whatever it was, stuff like that. Whereas another way of looking at it could be just really bad matches or botches and stuff that didn't gel. So I've gone for kind of a mixture of the two.
I mean, I've actually gone for the other side of that, which is just out and out, just the worst in-ring action you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And my pay-per-view match isn't a WWE pay-per-view. It's not even a WCW pay-per-view. It's from Heroes of Wrestling.
Okay.
It's the infamous Nikolai Volkov and Iron Sheik versus the former Bushwhackers, as it was billed.
Because when I read out this question, you were like, "I've got mine." I didn't know it was gonna. Now that makes sense.
Instantly, I mean, it's the match that Brian Alvarez gave, minus all the stars in the universe, and the universe is infinite. It is a truly wretched wrestling match, and actually, the main event of that show, which was meant to be, God, if I can remember this correct now. I think it was Jim Neidhart and Yokozuna against Jake the Snake Roberts and someone else now. I can't remember. But it was meant to be 2 singles matches, but Jake was in no shape. This was the you want to play 21? I got 22. It means you lost your knob. But he cut that promo and then just started coming out making women rub his chest, and he was using the snake as if it was an appendage. Very awkward.
But this was 2000 time after WCW.
No, this was 1999. This was when wrestling was at its apex, when it was at its hottest. And this guy was like, I'm going to get all of the guys who aren't contracted to WCW and are on WWE's blacklist, and I'm going to create the heroes of wrestling, and we're going to do this as a show
using the dropouts.
Yeah, using all the dropouts.
And the caster side.
Exactly, using all that, and so Marty Jannetty got a payday. Tommy Rich was on the show.
It's good to get work.
Exactly, it's good to get work, but the show was Dutch Mantel was doing commentary. And at the start of the show, he was like, I'm Dirty Dutch, nothing this. By the end of it, he was so worn out by the bad wrestling, he was just like, sad elbow tailor, just like doing calling wrestling. It's so fun. It's an awful, awful show. But that match in particular, Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov against the former Bushwhackers is... man, it's bad.
I think Brian Zane does a good review of it.
Yes, he did it with
on Wrestling with Regret.
He did it with Blumpier, didn't he?
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Oh, that might be why I've seen. Yeah, if you go and check out that for more on it.
Absolutely.
Or watch it yourself.
Yeah. Try and find on YouTube, because the only versions you can find are really bad VHS rips, so the sound quality is really poor. Oh man, it was filmed from a place called Casino Magic in Las Vegas.
Sounds glitzy. What about worst TV match?
So my worst TV match. What do you want to do your worst pay-per-view?
Well, I've only got a worst pay-per-view match, and it's just Bret Hart versus Vince McMahon at WrestleMania 20.
WrestleMania 2007. I only know that because I watched it quite recently. I watched it within the last week. Last 2 weeks I've watched that.
So I haven't seen it since. I remember just being so appalled by how badly that was thought out. It's not a hard story to write, is it? And they just made it horrible, uncomfortable to watch. Just everything they tried to tell didn't work.
It felt like it was a double turn.
Yeah.
It felt like Bret Hart turned heel, so that Vince McMahon could be the babyface.
What else happened in that? Because I just remember the big spots of the infinite chair shots, the Hart family coming down to cheer.
Well, so the match started off with Vince bringing out the Hart family, saying that I've paid them off.
Right.
Because you Harts are all about money. So they've all turned their back on Bret. And then Bret cuts a promo being like, oh, well, I knew you'd do this, so we've all double-crossed you. And then the Hart family all get to beat down Vince. Vince takes a hell of a bump as well, because they do the old heart attack spots where Jim Hart would get up on the turnbuckle and do a diving clothesline, the Doomsday device that Legion of Doom used to do, or the New Road Warriors. They do that, but do it on the outside. So Davey Boy Jr. gets Vince up on his shoulders, and then Tyson Kidd, Gigi Wilson, jumps off the top rope down and knocks him down onto the ground hard. I'm like, he's Vince, watch out.
Yeah.
He's not a young, sprightly man.
Tell Vince that.
Well, yeah, tell Vince
Probably
that.
went back and he squatted his PB after that.
But it's a wretched... What's worse, it's about 20 minutes.
It goes on for so long.
My favourite... So I watched that pay-per-view live with some old uni friends of mine. I'd graduated from uni by that point. I went back down to Portsmouth to watch it with these friends of mine. And my friend is Shawn Michaels is his favourite. All-time fave is Shawn Michaels. So he hates Bret Hart. Absolutely hates Bret Hart. And he was not into this match whatsoever, because Bret Hart was coming back as this big baby face, and he was there just with his arms folded, being like, well, he's no Shawn Michaels, is he? Because Shawn Michaels is the best one. And Shawn Michaels was in the main event with The Undertaker, so that's all he was interested in. But at one point in the match, he was like, well, Bret's gone back to being what he does best. Effing being boring.
Well, that's very unfair.
Which I thought was very unfair as well.
So what's your worst TV match?
So my worst TV match was from an episode of Monday Night Raw, and it was when they did Donald Trump versus Rosie O'Donnell. So this was before Donald Trump got involved in the WrestleMania angle with Bobby Lashley and Umaga.
I don't think I've ever seen or heard of this.
Oh, do you not? So there was this whole political thing where Rosie O'Donnell and Donald Trump were like going back and forth, probably on Twitter or something, or touts maybe, about how much they hate each other. And Vince thought it was the funniest thing, and he wants to get both of them onto Raw. Donald Trump wanted to do it, and I don't think Rosie O'Donnell wanted to do it, or he couldn't get either one of them. So he's just like, oh, I've advertised it. So he had...
Classic promoter.
Yeah, so he brought in two independent wrestlers and dressed them up as Rosie O'Donnell and Donald Trump.
Oh, I do remember this.
And they had a match on Raw, and it's death comes to television. It's very, very bad.
I've got another one.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, TV match. It's just come to me, and it's a kind of similar thing.
Excellent.
It was Raw was being held somewhere. I think it was NBA. I haven't researched this, so I can't tell you all the facts off the top of my head. But Raw was being held somewhere on a Monday night, and I think the NBA. But the only reason I can think of this happening, maybe the playoffs went to the Game 7, and they were kicked out of their building. I don't know how you would have thought that would have been worked out. Anyway, whatever happened, Raw wasn't taking place in the building it was supposed to. So it had to take place somewhere down the street, and the whole show was like Vince McMahon just ripping on the owner of the team that screwed over his venue. And it ended with a 5-on-5 match at the end of the night.
I don't remember.
Do you not remember this?
I don't remember this at all.
I can't remember enough about it because people just start saying, you're wrong, you've said that wrong. All the things you've said already are wrong. So I'm not going to go into that. But it did, pretty confident it happened, and I didn't like that. So that's all we've got time for the mailbag.
Hot damn.
However,
what an episode of the mailbag. We haven't done a mailbag episode yet, so that was good fun.
There's something that's been sitting right here. Bit of an elephant in the room. It's the Money in the Bank briefcase.
Lunchbox.
Briefcase here with, of course, the scandal that could ruin me. Now, going into Saturday's Fantasy Booking Warfare, it was 3-2 overall in predictions and Fantasy Booking Warfare competitions between me and Luke to Luke. So it all hinged on the Fantasy Booking Warfare of the Shield reunion. 5,304 of you voted, which is the most by a long way for any Fantasy Booking Warfare we've ever had.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for doing that. But it turns out that you made the wrong choice because only 28% of those people voted for my really good... It was a lot... 28% voted for me and 72% voted for Luke.
Yes, mate. The right choice was made. We all went for story and emotion and mystery men, more importantly, over a trios championship.
Which had emotion as well and comedy.
No, it wasn't
Go
enough,
back and
mate.
listen to it.
It wasn't
enough.
enough.
Because this was on the line.
No, it's not that. You
think
could
people
try
voted.
you could try and put that on
But
it
it's
as much
not
as
that,
possible.
sure.
That is a landslide victory
If I
and
lost-
a worthwhile landslide
If I
victory.
lost by 55 to 45, I'd be like, fair play. Okay. It was close, but this is...
It's just mine
this
was
is
better,
nonsense.
mate. It was so much
This is
better.
nonsense.
Because isn't it you built yours up quite a lot, and then it was just
I thought it was really
and it
good.
was just a trios championship. It was no sword feet shield now, was it? As someone pointed out, it was a very Marvel thing for me to do.
So that you get this now. You won the inaugural championship month. You 4-2 overall, and the scandal that can ruin me. I'm gonna have to reveal it on Saturday.
Yeah, we're gonna reveal it on Saturday. Yeah.
I've got to get my house in order. I can't just. I didn't think you'd win.
Well,
I haven't.
I was fully prepared, and I already got the paperwork prepped for you, so that you can just go out there and fill it out. But unfortunately, that paperwork's not going to be processed until Saturday, which means that I will get my lunchbox then.
So this is yours.
Yes, it is.
For now, but just don't open it until Saturday. Oh God. Well, that's all we've got time for. So please click the videos.
I'm going to hold this like Baron Corbin does.
Yeah.
Right? He holds it like this and then just does that. Oh, not my microphone there. Just. smacks it. That's what he does.
That's great.
That's his gimmick.
Thank you for spoiling my outro and spoiling my life at the same time.
You're welcome.
Please click the videos that have just appeared over Luke's face to catch up with the latest episodes of the WrestleRamble or the WrestleTalk news. This has been Luke Owen. I've been Ollie Davis. And that was Rambling.